narrated in a language they would understand. The president made this known on Tuesday after meeting with the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Mohamed Yakubu, and other electoral commissioners in Aso Villa, Abuja, over the series of attacks on INEC facilities, especially in the southeastern part of the country. Buhari further revealed that he received daily security reports on the attacks on critical national infrastructure, and it is very clear that those behind them would want his administration to fail, insisted that his administration has no third-term agenda, vowing to do its best to ensure a successful election across the country despite increasing violence. The senator representing Imo West Senatorial District, Rochas Okorocha, has reacted to the killing of the All Progressive Congress APC chieftain Ahmed Gulak in Owerri, Imo State at the weekend. Recall that Gulak, who conducted the APC primary election in Imo State prior to the 2019 general elections, had accused Okorocha of, among other things, taking him hostage and forcing him to announce the results in his favor because he had wanted his son-in-law, Uche Nwosu, to win the party's primary elections, with which Hope Uzodinma was announced as winner, and there were accusations and counter-accusations between them. Reacting to his demise, the Imo State immediate past governor in the state, signed by his special advisor on media, Sam, described Gulak as a brilliant politician, calling on the Inspector General of Police, IGP, to investigate the killing, insisting that investigation would unravel the motive behind those who murdered the politician, while sending his heartfelt condolences to the family of Alhaji Gulak and the government of Adamawa State. And finally, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, has listed the issues with the 1999 Constitution presently run by Nigeria, saying the law was hurriedly put together and falls short of the required standard. Gbajabiamila said this in Lagos on Tuesday at the public hearing organized by the House Special Committee on the Review of the Constitution, noting that the hearing was part of a deliberate effort by the National Assembly to seek the guidance and support of citizens towards amending the Constitution. According to him, it will be a failure if the Constitution that emerges from this process continues to look to the past rather than reflect the present and speak to the future, insisting that it is an opportunity for renewal and must be seized or face the harsh judgment of history. These are some of the stories that we're following, political headlines. Remember, you can send us messages on Facebook, and our Facebook page is 925 Dream FM, and on Twitter is at Dream925 FM. Plus, you can send us a WhatsApp message on this number, 0902 0020 925. Please do stay with us. Welcome back. It's still 92.5 in News Dream FM Political Voices. Remember, Political Voices is live as always, and today we are discussing legislative representation in Nigeria, expectations and outcomes. So I'll just go ahead and introduce my guests in the building. I have Barrister Nwabueze Ugu. I think they usually forget to put that title, and we need to make sure that my producer
Go on.
Yes. Okay. Nwabueze Ugu, constitutional lawyer, human rights activist, former lawmaker in Enugu State, where he represented Kano West constituency. He doesn't have a title yet, but hey. Good morning, sir.
Thank you, Jude. Thank you, distinguished listeners.
He's not particular about his title yet. And we have Barrister Nwadume Nadume Ofokansi. He's a constitutional lawyer, human rights and property consultant, legal head of Okansi Chambers and chairman, Nigeria Bar Association, Isiagu branch, ESBA. Sir, you're welcome.
Yes, and
Ochiaga, please, I need you to help me write that.
Having me, Jude.
You're always welcome. All right, so let's quickly run through the background. Now, the legislature is one of the key institutions in the democratic process. To the extent that any attack on its composition or functioning or seen as below against democracy is premised on the fact that it symbolizes democracy and avails the people the opportunity to participate in government. So, as the constitutional lawyer, what are the primary responsibility of the legislative arm of government?
Well, I think you are referring to me.
Yes, of course. You're the constitution.
He is also a constitutional lawyer. Yeah. First of all, I must have to appreciate the presence of my colleague, a learned friend, obviously. Not only that he's a constitutional lawyer, he is also, or he was also one time legislator, the Enugu State House of Assembly, at least between 1999 and 1983, when legislation was legislation. It's not now that everything is appended to the executive. So I believe we're going to have a robust discussion. Well, the underlying factor is that I said it one time in this forum that of the three arms of government, that the most powerful, let me put it that way, of the arms is the legislative arm. We have the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. Because why is the legislature the strongest arm? It is one of the arms that give legal teeth to whatever we do. They can make laws to legislate themselves even out of existence. So that's why they are one of the most, in fact, that is the strongest. Because they can make law tomorrow and say there will be nothing like government again in any state. And the government will cease to exist. Even if the government refuses to give assent, they can veto it in their house. There are provisions for such things. So their primary function is to make laws. But laws govern any society, and that's why you say rule of law. It is not the rule of man. Who rules Nigeria? Physically, we say it is President Muhammad Buhari. But it is law that rules Nigeria. Because it was law that brought Buhari into that office. It was law that told Jonathan to exit when he failed the election. If the laws are not there, then there will be no society. It will be anarchy. So when it now turns to rule of man, that's when we start running into problems. And that's exactly where Nigeria is diving into. Because it has now become the rule of man. The laws are no more put in place. This other one will give instruction here, people obey, people disobey. Another person gives instruction, people obey, people disobey. It is no more rule of law. But when it is rule of law, as crafted by the houses of assembly and the National Assembly, because they are the ones crafting the laws, and then guided by the grand norm of the side, that is the Constitution. You find out that if you slap another person unjustly, you will be taken to law, where you will be tried based on the law made by the legislature. And if you are found guilty, you will be sentenced to correctional centers, where you go and learn a little lesson how to behave in a civil society. Before you go to the court, there must be a law. If there is no law, you can't do that anymore. And in fact, I think it's an icon. You say whatever offense you are going to try anybody must be in a written law. If there's no offense, you can't drag anybody to court.
So the primary responsibility.
So that law I'm talking about must be made by the legislature, the House of Assembly, the Senate, the House of Reps. Now, our Constitution is we're having problems with the run of the Constitution. We want to tinker with it. Now, in the process of tinkering with it, it is still the same legislature that has gone around all the states of the Federation to look for inputs of people to the law they are going to make. That's why I said their primary duty is to make laws. Even though, like I said, Nigeria is dwindling into the rule of man, you find out that this issue of legislator executive competence that we discussed on Monday, that is a 6 years of yes. So, and this is the one you are talking about. You see, I think very many broadcast stations in Nigeria are playing the ostrich. The ostrich is when the ostrich and the toro, if he's fighting, he wants to hide it, he will put his head somewhere and hide the head. The whole of the body will be outside. The Nigerian politicians are playing as if nothing is happening. But the nation is slipping out of their hands. And it is slipping very fast. So this issue of legislator, executive competence, I had expected major of the radio stations and to discuss the things that are happening as of current. Because in Rwanda, when the genocide was, a radio station MD was haunted from pillar to post by the International Criminal Court. That is what court. I think he was sentenced to 100 and something years.
Yes.
Good. It was because he refused to show what was happening. He was covering the thing from his own people's point of view. I think the Tutsi's point of view. He is not a military man. But the sentence he got more than the military people who shot the gun itself. So that's why I said we cannot concede things that are happening that's not happening. I will just temporarily stop here. Okay. Otherwise, the way many stations in southeast and south part of Delta blacking out what happened in Nigeria between southeast, especially between Monday, including the deaths that were recorded in the streets. It's not palatable. So, but I'm not trying to refer people to ICPC, ICC. I'm not saying that. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that you people give a balanced view of things that are happening, so that the politician won't think that all is well, because all is not well. If you think all is well, you go for House of Assembly, amendment of Constitution, you move here and there, and you think everything is safe. We are not safe. Look at what happened in Abuja that day. People are moving in their droves from Kogi, and you say it's not a war situation. It's a war situation. And the politicians are thinking that nothing is happening. Meanwhile, let me stop here because they will still have time.
All right. It's great you brought us back. We will look at that later on in the show. But since the advent of the Fourth Republic in 1999, there have been mixed feelings on how the National Assembly has been performing its legislative functions, the rate of which its effectiveness has been subject to debate, of course. Now, in your view, sir, I'm talking to Barrister Mwabweze Ugu. How would you rate the performance of the National Assembly since Nigeria returned to democracy rule in 1999?
I would say that we do know that when you look at the legislature, it is often said that the legislature is the engine room of democracy. It is the people's parliament. It is the soul of the government. The reason why it is the engine room of democracy is because that is the only distinguishing factor between a democracy and a dictatorship. And that makes it the engine room. It also makes it the soul of any responsible government. Now, the job of the legislature, as defined by Section 4 of the 1999 Constitution, also makes it the first branch of government, is to make laws. Section 1, subsection 2 of the Constitution says that no part of this country or the Federation as a whole will be governed except in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. Now, it is this Constitution that says in Section 4 that the legislature is in charge of laws, making of laws, and defines how the laws should be made in Section 58 and 59. Section 58 is on mode of making laws, general laws. Section 59 is on the mode of making money bills, that's appropriation laws. Now, if you look at dictatorship, which Nigeria practiced from 1966, January 16, until October 1, 1979, and again from December 31, 1983, until 1999, May 29. There was a little stint when in the stillborn Third Republic. That's why it is referred to as a stillborn, because it wasn't a full-blown republic. You had elected chairman, local government chairman, elected members of the National Assembly, houses for assembly, and elected governors, but there was no elected president and vice president. We were still marching on to that. When after Buhari had stepped aside, Ane Shonekon was the head of government. Was it Buhari or Babangida? So was it Buhari?
Babangida stepped aside.
Babangida, IBB.
Yes, and Abacha
Ibrahim
came and removed,
Badamasi Babangida
yes.
stepped aside and gave the mantle of leadership to MS Shoneko. We were still preparing to conduct election when Abacha struck and sacked the entire democratic structures, and we came back to square one. And we were inching up to another totalitarianism when God struck. And here we are. By the mercies of Abdul Salami Abubakar, we came to this democracy on May 29, 1999. You know that what we have in Nigeria is not democracy. Looking at the definition, the original definition of democracy, democracy originated in Athens, Greece, in 508 BC. And their idea of democracy is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. What is known as democracy in most parts of the world today is a government of the people through elected representatives for the people. So what we have in most parts of the world is representative democracy, not democracy strictly so-called. Now, like I have said, the Constitution has stated how this democracy should run. The implication, if you relate it to what is going on in Nigeria, it's very clear that nobody has the right to make any law except the legislature. So what they refer to as presidential order, where the president purportedly makes laws, is illegal. It is null and void. It can't hold water. Now, recently, much of the world has been sliding from democracy to dictatorship. And yet, they are still in a democratic system. I'll give you an instance. Sometime last year, March 2020, the Parliament of Hungary gave authority to the Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, to rule by decrees so as to bring Hungary out of COVID very fast. You see, what is important is that they had divested themselves of the power given to them to make laws for the people and handed it over to the Prime Minister, back to the executive, thereby now converting Hungary from a democracy to a dictatorship. Of course, from the time Viktor Orban took over power in 2010, he has never hidden his disdain for democracy. And he has never hidden his preference for dictatorship. That's why he's been hounding the entire democratic structures, hounding civil society organizations, hounding even the court system, everything and everybody. But of course, the Europeans insisted that what the legislature did was wrong. That it's an open invitation to anarchy in Hungary. But it's not an isolated case. That's exactly what is also going on in Nigeria. The fact that you are a democratic institution is not just that the Constitution has said you are a democratic state. It's not a matter of just saying it. It is a thing that must be practiced. Democracy must be practiced. If you say you are democratic and you are not practicing democracy, then you are not a democratic state.
Interesting.
Now, in Nigeria, It is very clear. Like I have said, any law that is made, which is not made by the legislature, is not a law under the Constitution, under the laws of Nigeria. But this thing has continued to happen. So if you ask me, I would say that the legislative representation in the present democracy that has lasted in this country for about 22 years now is very, very, I can only give a question mark to it.
Interesting. Now, I want to come back to you, Barrister Nadine Ofokansi. Now, let's look at the legislature, most especially the ones representing the Southeast. Do you think that they're representing the people, especially in the Southeast, considering how constituency allowance has been utilized? Do you think we're getting, and then a lot of complaints, most especially what just happened recently, do you think they're doing what they're supposed to be doing in the House?
Well, if you tell me to narrow it down to Southeast, that's
Yes.
all right.
Yes.
Because that is my principal vision of visionary springboard
Yeah.
from where we now talk about the mega Nigerian society. And like when I was opening my speech here, I said, good thing that somebody who has been in that House of Assembly, at least when legislation seemed like legislation, not now. Many of them, scampered for their lives and safety. By the divine grace, and many of them, he's here. I'm saying it when he's not there, that may be something someone was saying, out of context. The reason why he was scampering for his life was because they were doing the right thing. They wanted to place the governors in check. It is not only making laws. They make laws, they also place the governor, because all the arms of government provide check and balances for each other. Because they were trying to place the governors in check between 1999 and 1983, they incurred the wrath of the executives. Now, as to that time, it was legislation. Even though their turn at that time, towards the end of it, the executive wanted to muscle it up, and majority of the things. But some of us who are critical of good governance know they were doing the right thing. Now, let's take it back to the National Assembly you're talking about. In anywhere, there are 3 senators. About how many members of the House of Rep? I think 8 or thereabouts. Fine. Attracting constituency projects to your constituency is a nice one. It's a physical thing on the ground. But project implementation is purely the duty of the executive. It's not the duty of the legislature. You can attract, but many of them attract and also execute. This is another hand of it. Because what they do and they execute, I think there is also lopsided.
I would like to understand that a little bit, because you said they attract and they execute.
Yes, like if you are a senator,
Yes.
and you want a constitutional project attracted to your own senatorial zone, it will be attracted to a senatorial zone, and maybe you also look for a contractor to do the work for that your zone. And the contractor might also be a company in which you have vested interest. That's what I say, attract and execute.
So what's supposed to be the right?
No, just your duty is just attract it, let the executive and the department, the works department or minister of work, let them go ahead, award the contract or whoever, and then monitor the implementation. You are just attract alone. But this time around they do, but this is not even where I'm going. Where I'm going is that there are things we had expected from our legislators. I won't have a blanket condemnation of all of them. There are some that we know that they are in the House. If I'm permitted to mention names, when the former Deputy Senate President was Deputy Senate President, nobody will say he doesn't know he's representing a section of Enugu State. Nobody will say that. At least you hear him every day in the House chambers of the Senate. You see his contributions. You see he moves bills. You see he has committees. And we'll see what he's doing. But that is for him. Besides him, I don't even know there are no other member of the National Assembly from Enugu State. I want to be very frank with you. Besides the fact that they say Senator Okeke or Senator Okaf. But in the floor of the Senate, you see, there was an argument some time ago, before the current governor of Enugu State came on board. Some people say, no, he was a former local government chairman. They were arguing it in one forum. Some say no, it's from the House of Reps. Personally, with my experience as a lawyer and old as I am at the bar, I didn't even remember hearing such a name in the House of Reps until he became our governor. Now, these are the kind of things we say we don't want anymore. If you are going to represent us, that has to be holistic. If you come here, we are now talking about Southeast Development Corporation. Like you have Niger Delta Development or Province States Development. So there's one for Borno. People move that motion. That is your duty as a legislator. If you create that law, that is your duty. Create the law, give it an environment, it's to implement it. Once they sign into law. You don't need, if you have created successfully Southeast Development Corporation and it has become a law and there is a board of directors, you can nominate anybody to it if you like, but if you don't like, just create it as a law and allow the executive to implement. If you have succeeded in doing that, that is a major task of a legislator, to create that law. Now, there were laws also being created now. Maybe when the Federal University Ali Kipo Submission Act was created, it was still the National Assembly that did it. I think there's one now they are working on in Mpu, in a new local government. It is still the legislature that have to create the law. So these laws have to be created for the executive to implement it. But what we are saying is that majority of our representatives, like asked my learned friend, at the National Assembly, many of them are there just once you say, those in support say aye, they say aye, or those against say nay, they say nay. If it's a matter of reason, they raise up their hands and put their hands down when it's not time. Now, this is the kind of representative we say we don't want anymore. It is not going there to make noise. There is something called talking in the Senate. Talking in the Senate doesn't mean standing up and saying anything you like. If you want to talk in the Senate, you talk reasonably and move towards why you were elected. If you had watched, that's why I say you talked about, I think you talked about Enugu.
Yes.
Fine. If you talk, you will take it.
Southeast.
Okay, if we extend it to Southeast.
Yes, Southeast.
You pull up Eyinia Baribe, for instance. I'm sorry to be mentioning names.
No, it's okay.
Good. If you hear him in the Senate, he might not have his way all the time. But the important thing is that he has sensitized people to know that his own constituency needs this. That's what we are saying. He might not get the vote because of the lopsidedness in the creation of people who go to the Senate. Like the other day I was talking about, if you have 3 people from Enugu in the Senate, if you go to areas like Niger or Borno, you might have 5 or 6. If they team up as a northern caucus, maybe of APC, no matter the kind of bill you bring here, unless you do some lobbying with them, whatever bill you bring, no matter how well intended, and it's to Southeast, they will knock it down. But the important thing that you have sensitized people to know that this man had the will of the people at heart and has made it open in the floor of the Senate. You will see Senate President most of the time, because I watch majority of the sessions, we'll be trying to shout in the the man will just put his bottom, put us on his chair and stand up again and will still be making his point. This is the kind of representative. If 8 out of everybody that went to the Senate from Southeast, if we can get 5, 8 is too much. Just let us have 5, like Eyinia Baribe and Dike Kwaraman. Add them 3 again. We won't be having the kind of problem we're having now. Now, you can see the agitation that are going on in the Southeast. These things are as a result of the failure of those of our representatives to do the needful. And it then drove into a time when a non-governmental actor now issues instruction and people obey him. A governmental actor will issue his own to be disobeyed. What does it tell you? It tells you that people have lost confidence in their government representatives. If they still have confidence, there's no way a governor will say, don't do this, people will do it. No, he's your governor. He was elected by you. But the governor will say, don't do this. And then the guy who is somewhere, somewhere running away, will give instruction and people obey it. Have we not told you there's something wrong somewhere? So that's why I said, why can't these Southeast governors like Okowa said on Sunday, go back to the drawing table, call these boys to a round table, talk with them. What does it take them to talk with them? It doesn't take anything. If they can't listen to you, go through the traditional rulers. They can listen to. Before you know it, there will be synergy. So it is a failure of representation, failure of people in government to do what they are supposed to do for the people they are representing that are led to all these agitations. There is agitation in Middle Belt. Everybody Middle Belt now say they will, but that the ones people are talking about Biafra is a waste of time. Their own is now hotter. There's agitation in the West. Oduduwa say they are now getting their own republic. Even the Connaught, the House man is also agitating against the Fulani. So what brought us to this level? That's what we should ask ourselves. Our representatives we voted for, our people we told to go and represent us. They what we desire. I gave you how many people are representing Southeast in the Senate.
Yes.
And out of all these people, I told you it is only 2 people that will hear their voice. Where goes the rest? Where are the rest? What are they doing in that Senate? Collecting their allowances and voting when it's time to vote? Is that why they are there? So you didn't tell us what you should do for us when you were going there. That laws they will make for us to get those. Okay, let me give you another example. Between 9th Mile and Ama Breweries, passing through Oge, getting across to Olo. Now you head to Obo family, is in Anambra State. From there you get to Nzam. After Nzam is Kogi. This ordinary should be a federal road, because there are track roads that joining all these communities I'm listing now. What stops those people representing Udi and Ezeago and also one and maybe Kogi to have a signage in the Senate and tell the people, open up this route? It will make traveling to Abuja even faster. It will make traveling to Anambra, Onitsha even faster, instead of taking the route of the old one they have abandoned. Have multiple exit and entrance points so that everybody will feel he belongs to Nigeria.
Interesting.
But they go back there and just sit down in the Senate and think all is well. But they know immediately after NSAS, that bond that hold the electorate with the elected got broken.
All right. Now, I want to ask this, of course, to Barrister Umar Beze. Now, the fact that you've been in the Assembly, I know that we can all sit here and always just point fingers. You've been in the State Assembly. Do you think that the House of State, House of Assembly, are they providing the necessary representation of their people? And if not, why are they not doing that?
You know, I am not certain that when asked, members of the State Assembly would, in all honesty, own up to performing their duty. I am not certain.
Why is that?
You see, first and foremost, I've described here sometime how somebody may be willing to do a job, but is incapable of doing that job. I've also described how some other persons may be capable of doing a particular work, but are unwilling to do it. You see, first and foremost, it's not easy to look somebody in the face and say no to them. It's not easy at all. Especially in a situation where the various state legislatures are under the upper constraints of the government. They depend completely on the government. There is an umbilical cord tying the state legislatures with the governor, not even the governor, not even the executive. They depend on the governor to pay the electric bill, the bill of the assembly. They depend on the governor to buy probably detergents to clean the assembly.
Change their own road too.
To do anything. And so they go cap in hand to the governor for anything that they want. So in such a situation where you have financial dependence on the government, you do not expect that there will be a mental independence of these legislators. When I was in the assembly, you remember that the only reason why assassins were sent to kill me and eventually killed my look-alike elder brother was simply because I looked the governor in the face and said, what you are trying to do is not what my people want. My people will question me if I go back to my constituency. What we are trying to do is against the people that own the government. And so I will not sit here and keep still my mouth and allow such thing be done without as much as saying no. At least let me say no, so that the people will know that I am representing them and that I'm speaking their mind. When you are representing a group of persons, you are supposed to speak the mind of those people, not your own mind. So that you are not in the assembly to line your pocket, to sing hallelujah to the governor and get him to give you money each time. That's not why you are in the assembly. It is misplaced priority. What we've been having in Nigeria, like in many other democracies since probably 2000, is democratic backsliding. That's the term. Democratic backsliding. Because that democracy, that representative democracy, which was decided upon and the boundaries determined, everything about it spelled out, has been sliding.
Interesting.
It's been moving from democracy to authoritarianism, back to dictatorship.
All right, it's
And
still...
that's why we are in the kind of mess that we have today in Nigeria.
So you don't have faith
We are in a serious mess in Nigeria.
So you don't have
because
faith in the state assembly.
I give you an instance. Sometime in the distant past, I think it was the third amendment to the Constitution. The state legislature, there was an amendment to the Constitution that said the state legislature was going to be given financial autonomy from the executive. Financial autonomy from the executive. Do you know that they voted against it?
They voted against it.
Because I was just about to ask that question as well.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, why was it voted against?
Because they are tied their purse strings to the governor. That is exactly, he has said it earlier.
Because the governor dictates
That's what goes
what
on.
they do.
He brought them into that House of Assembly or into the Senate. It is the governor that give the ticket. It's not even any primary elections. So
But if we have that, let me
Yes.
take this to you, sir. If we have the legislative autonomy, what do you think would be the impact on the people at the grassroots? Or does it just mean more money for the House of Assembly and
No,
Representatives as well?
doesn't mean more money, so to say. But it means, like he said, interface with those people who elected you. Because you are closer to them. You go home to them, you know your constituency. It's just like a councillor. He says he's supposed to be in the village to know what actually his people want, which he will relate to the local government chairman. So the larger local government now depends on the person representing them at the House of Assembly. If he has a constituency office, I can walk into the constituency office of the man representing me in Ezeagu, Chimobias, and tell Chimobias, this is what I want. But I don't even know where his constituency office is. That's what we are saying. Because maybe he was handpicked by a governor, go and buy form. And having bought the form, he who pays the piper, he takes the tune. You don't expect him to vote for his independence when the person who brought him there. Look at what is happening with the judiciary independence. This is the third month now, third month of strike.
Yes, and I heard that you're going back on it.
The strike, we're still on the strike. So why are we striking? Because they said, the judiciary is a different kind of government. The staff went to court, got judgment that the constitution should be implemented. The provisions of the constitution, we're not telling governors to dash us. So the governors now said, no problem, we'll have a meeting. They had a meeting, said they want to enter agreement. The young man said, okay, until we get alert. If we don't have alert, we will not go back to work. Now, remember they are fighting their own, I'm fighting that of legislature. Judiciary is now fighting for both. The legislature now remember that should also go on strike. But these are the same people who say, we don't want autonomy, we want to be attached to the governor. When the constitution says you are three different arms of government. So what makes the fusion? You don't need the fusion, you have to separate. So it's not more about more money. It is about the independent, about you, Judy, who is here. If you feel that where you are staying has no tarred road, and it's a government to tie your road, you go to your representative. What is holding Okeke Street from being tied? Is it not in the budget? Because I recall that when the past administration was anywhere, there were times they said they are tired dualizing Ogui Road, dualizing ZK Avenue. Before you know, they have moved to the streets. One day, I had the front there. I went to someone representing me in the House of Assembly. He said, no, I should talk to the commissioner. I went to the commissioner. The commissioner then was one Lukumame. I told the honorable commissioner, sir, I will not doing streets. He said, no, we are coming to streets. But we are facing the major roads. Just watch before next week, you see us in the streets. That is the power of representation. Even though he was a commissioner, but I have to talk to him. And before that next 2 weeks, that time I was living in Achale out. They started with the Mariam Street. And a very wonderful thing played out, which I gave you just very briefly. My 2 children I was taking to school, just in primary school. The one that worked here on attachment, they were arguing in my vehicle. Because they were escaping the roads. The senior one was there, why are they escaping the roads? The other one was saying, it's like government want to tie the streets. He said, no, they don't tie quota in streets. It is only in major roads.
Oh my God.
So they asked me, Daddy, did they tie quota in streets? I said, yes, so my sons and daughters. But to have that bad government that doesn't know that streets need a quota. So at the end of the day, they now saw that streets can have a quota. So it had it. So that's where we are going. Representation. Being close to your people. Because like he said, democracy is about people who voted you in. Not about you who is there.
And making money off of
Yes,
it.
it's
All right.
not about what you think, but what the people what they think. That's what you should be concerned about.
Interesting. So we're going to open the phone lines. Now, we have a question to guide you through today. Now, we want you to rate your legislature, whether the State House of Assembly or the Federal House of Assembly. And, of course, you're free to call your names and let us know the things that they've done and what you feel they should do more. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, sir. What's your name?
Jude Thomas Dawam, calling from my hometown, Untitled.
All right, sir. You're welcome. Please go ahead.
Yes, what we are discussing today is just like because yesterday, because when you hear good of fighting INEC and the police in particular, see that these are set of people that put up the people we don't do, that demand don't want the electorate, don't want the people, the politicians use in keeping themselves as Abuja, as members of the ASS, as assemblymen, who go there but waiting for the eyes out. So look at the people we voted, somebody like Legin Diana said. You see that people are talking about the good of him. So what we are saying is that on the basis of different establishment, cleanse themselves and give us the type of people we want in the assembly or as government. That is when we will get out there. That is say they are doing something good.
All right. Thank you so much. Let's quickly read this from Facebook. This is coming from Good Luck Asara. It says, my own take on this issue, on the discussion, is that legislature, both state assembly and national assembly, are not representing the people's mandate. Rather, they chose to work for the executive arm of government. The legislature is not really an arm of government as envisaged. Wow, that's a very strong one. And we have VC Ugwai. He says the executive interference of legislature have made the legislature to perform below expectations. Again, most of our legislature doesn't even know their jobs. Instead, they are just there to make money. The senator representing my zone in the upper house currently, Senator Chuka Utazi, is trying his best in terms of being vocal in the house, but I want him to do more. All right, hello, good morning. Hi, good morning. Morning, sir. What's your name? Okay, please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, what we talk of representation as the people by those who are elected, the issue is that some of the elected representatives, some of them don't even know what is representation. Why did I said it to them? There was a time when the legislature precisely were telling us that some members of the House that usually when proceeding is going on in the House, he also said that there was a time one of the members asked him what they were discussing. Could you imagine when a person is asking a member what was going on in the House? Including the quality of people that are elected. But this, what I want to say in particular is that the populace are to be, or the populace will contribute in what is happening. Why? How do they contribute? They contribute by, taking some defense and other things when it comes around.
All right, thank you so much. We'll quickly get this on Facebook. Michael DeGood says, many of us have lost hope on our representatives. One of the governors have seen that the Senate has no value again in Nigeria, and he is calling for the scrap of them. Let our National Assembly be dissolved because they are there eating our money, make the governance more costly. My name is Abuchi. All right, thank you so much, Abuchi, for that. But are they just chopping when you remember? Hi, good morning. What's your name? Good. Thank you. What's your name?
Bless you too. I was wondering. Jim, I was honestly wondering if I was not going to hear your voice this morning. Good morning, sir. Yes, sir.
Many people today know you as a former legislator who refused to collect their cash gifts, housing gifts, and money gifts to work against the people who elected you to represent them. President Governor punished you and your other colleagues and refuses to pay you what is due to you. So what am I saying by this? The legislature we have today is the biggest problem we have in Nigeria. Just remember that it is in this country that a president granted a legislative authority, gets the legislature in their various states. So this is accepted. Look at the federal legislature we have today and ask yourself, if they are truly representing the people that send them there, then let's go to be the federal legislature we have today and a disappointment. Expect people.
All right. All right, sir. Can I ask you a question? Who's representing you in your areas, and are they doing well?
Oh, my brother. What are we talking about the people representing you? Why not in this country? Look at Onitsha, Express, since 1999. And we didn't have the senators from the Southeast State who eventually become state president and deputy state president. Every year, that's road, 2 roads, that's Express. We will be invested in the budget, and trillions of money were voted. And look at my own place, Umundos. And many of you visit Umundos here. What are we talking about? And I keep saying every day. And nobody has ever said, don't say what he was saying is wrong.
Thank you so much. But let's quickly get to on Facebook. It says, Mr. Jude, legislative representation in Nigeria has not been able to meet its desired expectations, as some legislators don't even reach out to their constituencies to ascertain the pressing needs and concerns of their people, but all usually after their own personal government. And we have the Ngene Christian said, it's so disheartening that the original idea of legislation died in Nigeria. Where do we start and where do we end? Let's quickly get to this. Now, you heard what Chima said. Chima was very passionate. He's always very passionate when he calls about things like this. And he also told your story as well. But then where do we go from here? Looking at the situation of things, how do we make this different?
I think my take has ever been that the cost of governance is too enormous, too bogus, too big for us to carry. And that is why some of them not even know why they are there. I would have suggested a situation where we have a unicameral kind of National Assembly, just like we have single camera assemblies in all the states of the Federation. And then legislation becomes a part-time job. Yes.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean by part-time job is that before you become a lawmaker, you must have something doing. Now, if you contest election and win, any day the assembly will sit, you just go there, sit, make your laws, and when you finish making the law, you disperse. And you are allowed for the sitting, the number of days you sat, you just get into your phone. They'll go home. Whenever there is need for them, they can always come. They know the methods of convening. If they convene again, they come as you sit. and talk of than this issue of mapping out legislative village in Apo, mapping out official this, official that for legislators. And then the legislators we are mapping out these things for will still go back and append themselves to the executive. That is where I sometimes get confused about Nigerian politics. We were all witnesses to the Trump election in the United States. That is at least a country ruled by law. When the other man called hoodlums into the National Assembly, they came, they saw a lot of things. It was like America had descended in chaos.
Yeah.
But 3 days after that, they began to arrest one after the other all those people that went on that rampage.
And people
and
took
are trying them
responsibility.
to send them to jail.
All right.
So
Because of
that's where I am concerned. So let us go and then let us introduce a political system that will fit Nigeria. I keep on saying it.
All right.
It all compulsory must copy presidential election. The Babangida introduction of two-party system and moderation should be the independent candidate.
All right. So quickly, Barrister Nwabweze Ugu, where do we go from here?
Where we will need to go from here is that we will need to have a true federation. The Constitution said in Section 1, subsection 1, that Nigeria is a federation. That when you look at the rest of the provisions of the Constitution, Nigeria is not a federation. Nigeria is a unitary, is operating a unitary system of government. We need to have a true federation. And when we get that true federation, this country will move. Unless we do so, we will never move.
Wow, that's
You
a very
see,
strong statement.
I also want to say that the problem we have today in this democratic backsliding is that we are moving power from the democratic structures to one individual, the president. That's why, if you remember, Woodrow Wilson, the 28th president of the United States, once said that the history of liberty is a history of limitations of governmental power, not the increase of it. When therefore we resist the concentration of power, we are resisting the powers of death. Because concentration of powers is what always precedes the destruction of human liberties.